Welcome to Restaked, brought to you by Spell Labs. Join us as we explore restaking through conversations with the leading experts in this emerging ecosystem.
Welcome everybody to the Restaked podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Misha, the founder of Symbiotic Protocol. Welcome and happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Yeah, super happy to be here and discuss shared security with you.
Cool. Yeah. So I think like to kick it off, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the history of Symbiotic? I think we're all aware you also founder or co-founder of StateMind. Like, what is your why, right? Why did you build Symbiotic? What is the inner motivation that led you to build this protocol?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work for different infrastructure systems. Before StateMind, I was leading as a CEO of Mixbytes. I was leading Lido on Polkadot. So that's where we started a journey for shared security. The general goal for us as a team, Budalgis, my co-founder, was always how do we unblock ourselves? Because the restaking part, the crypto part of the world was actually really small and still is really small. Yeah, and misunderstood in a lot of ways and failing the necessary tooling to get mass adoption. So that in terms of throughput, the technology is kind of there. In terms of security and in terms of actual experience for users and builders, it's orders of magnitude more complex than Web 2. And to counter that, we wanted to that was a job for StateMind as well as a company. How do we make it safer? StateMind was going from the safer angle. How do we make it so people won't lose $8 billion per year? And it's 8 billion out of not that many billion, right? It's out of 130. So it's not like Visa handles $1 trillion of operations and they lose 10. No, it's we have only 100, 20 in actual use, and and we were losing 8 of those. The dynamics that were painted by the last years was that it was getting harder and harder to get new users, but easier and easier to lose them. And StateMind was doing a really great job of securing protocols. That they secured protocols of $38 billion. Such as Curve, Instadap, Lido, and other huge protocols. And in a free time, they were hacking a lot, not black hatting, but identifying vulnerabilities in production protocols. So they identified critical vulnerabilities in several blockchains, several rollups. Saved around 350 mil in actively funds under risk. While doing that, they were actually the first one. We were actually the first one. I'm differentiating myself, but we were actually the first one to show that you can't deploy to every EVM compatible chain as if it was Ethereum, because they're kind of not the same, even if they support EVM. So that was a wake-up call for a lot of protocols that were deploying to 15, 16 chains. So we try to help with that to make it more secure. But then we saw some troubling shift because the blockchain is really hard to develop for. The decentralized ledger technologies are really hard to develop for. In general, a lot of protocols that are even on a bigger side decided to compromise on decentralization for a bit. Have some part of the system that is centralized or multi-sig controlled or controlled by proof of authority or something like that. Just they weren't malicious in any way. They just wanted to ship to market faster. And with all the experience that we had working with Polkadot, not a pretty great experience, because Polkadot was really hard to develop for. I'm not it's not sensationalism. I'm not blowing someone else's mind. Everyone, this is pretty well documented. Yeah, we had this experience, and we saw that restaking is taking off as a primitive, and we thought we see everything there is in market right now. We can do much better. and this can actually help, like if it's done correctly and like it needs to be done almost perfectly. It can actually help people not to create a system with trade-offs, where like, yeah, I want to ship like this year, but the staking part is really hard to figure out. The operator part is really hard to figure out, and economic model is like not there yet. How can we do that like that so that they can still ship without like using some like 3 out of 5 multi-sig or like some other security like threats in the making. And yeah, like that's why we started. Like we had like 20 something developers available to us, so it was really nice. Like we had state mind, so we started like allocating some people to that protocol and like trying to figure out if it's even possible, because not every system is like even possible to make secure. Sometimes like when the client came and we were like, no, they're like this kind of functionality cannot be safe. Like, sorry, your protocol is not gonna happen. Like you need to redesign it from the ground up. So like we spent like a lot, around 8 months developing that, I think, before we even like started talking to people, because yeah, like before we were sure that this could actually be done, we didn't want to like create any sort of like.
I actually remember that. I like just remember, sort of Eigenlayer just kicked off, and people. I just heard a rumor. There's this protocol called Symbiotic, and it was like very eerie. It was like, yeah, like very smart people working on it, blah blah blah, and then like, everyone was like, okay, like how do I get exposure? Trying to find the contracts, see if it's deployed, see if people can, allocate into this early to start farming. But yeah, I remember that time. It was like very mystical, but yeah, it's pretty cool to be on the flip side now.
Yeah, early conversations were really secretive. We thought that like our design was like orders of magnitude better than anything that was on the market. And like the first, like the actual, like the fun part about it, the first presentation that we like had, the name was different. Like I haven't like decided on the name yet. So we had the name and loose concept of that immediately leaked. And some of our friends, like we already received like a deck with this particular name and like design that was not like final in any way, but yeah, we tried to keep it like secret for a while, just before we were sure that like we can actually perform the task. And yeah, after that the reception was amazing. Like people wanted to support us, because like not a lot of protocols start permissionless and have like the same conviction to security first, and to actually building first. Like a lot of protocols are just when they start, they're just marketing, right? And then they develop, they figure out, they pivot multiple times. Like for us, it was different. We really wanted to like see if the system works. And when we had a design, like only then we started marketing, because of the like, yeah, it was a strange product of that. Like the anticipation was that high. So like we got like the first tweet with like 80 followers that we had at the moment. The first tweet was like 1 million immediately impressions. Yeah, it was like pretty crazy as well.
Yeah, I remember that. And you mentioned having sort of ran Lido and Polkadot. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with like the designs of Polkadot and Cosmos, and like with Polkadot specifically having the relay chain, and you have all of these parachains, and they inherit security from this central relay chain that is supposedly maximally decentralized and secured by this much larger token, which is DOT. But looking back, I'd say Gavin Wood and the team over there like were visionaries in that, along with the guys at Cosmos. What would you say are the improvements of Symbiotic and shared security systems on Ethereum over like Polkadot and Cosmos, and how do you think it won't suffer the same fate as those ecosystems did?
Well, like it's the goal that was set in front of like Polkadot is in Cosmos as well is close, but like the devil is in the details. Like it makes Like when you actually look at it from from up close, it's nothing alike. First, like the Polkadot ecosystem was born from the start. Like you needed to do everything from scratch. So like every part of the demand, it's demand that you brought inside. Like just imagine, like we need to like create every protocol, like and convince them not to launch on Ethereum. That's a like task and a half, right? Like just imagine, like we have like 60 something protocols that are launching on us. Just imagine, like every one of those, we need to create like some new chain for that, like some new ecosystem for them to like deploy to. Yeah, and like for Polkadot, it was obviously like the problem with shipping. Like they were like slow to deliver. So we for those 2 points, like Symbiotic first is like about shipping. We're about like actually going into production and doing stuff, like with in the contrast for like marketing and never delivering, like always pivoting. We don't write academic papers, we just like write code. Yeah, and like even for like early investors, like they were like, do you have a white paper? And we were like, no, we have like an active core like that we've developed, and we have documentation for a code. And they're like, that's a nice fresh like breath of air, because like a lot of readMDs and not a lot of like GitHub code. So yeah, like the first one, yeah, we are actually shipping. We are way ahead of the curve, and we like think that the distance between us and the next like closest shared security protocol will only grow in terms of delivery. And the second part is that like Symbiotic is created from the start to have its trust root, like most of it at least on Ethereum, but you can actually like use it for any ecosystem. You don't have to migrate. If you're a Cosmos chain, you can stay a Cosmos chain. In fact, our first demonstrator for like chain, like Symbiotic secure chain was Cosmos SDK. So like any chain that has that requires that can actually use us. It doesn't mean that like we are like only for Ethereum or only like we have like 8 Bitcoin protocols. They don't want to use ETH like as a token like at all, because they're like, we are not ETH like aligned. Why do we use that? So we don't like create an isolated pocket of demand. We like basically can cater to every demand there is. So like the same was applied to Cosmos, because like their initiative was like Cosmos based, like we are not. Yeah, so universality, and as far as you know, like you know this well as well, right? Like every demand there is should be catered to, because like we need all of those just to like create a value and a mass big enough to support our initiative. Because like the restaking gives you money if you like restake to multiple networks, right? Like you can't restake to one, or you can, but like it's not going to be as efficient. And like a lot of other optimizations come from scale. And like Polkadot was like, and as well as Cosmos, like they were like struggling on the scale side. We on our side, at least, like we already have like 14 networks live, and like a lot more coming. So yeah, the demand side showed that there is a really palpable interest.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like to follow up on that, I mean, the shared security market has, I think, evolved quite a lot since the start of 2024. And you've seen, different things take place in the market. We've seen like maximal high incentives flowing around. And I think we're now sort of at a point where it's settled down a bit and sort of reality is setting in. And it's like, okay, let's see who's shipping and who is just like making marketing posts. And let's see like what products and networks come out of this. So in light of that, maybe what's one belief that you previously had about shared security systems that has shifted and changed throughout this process?
Well, that you need restaking for that. Shared security, like the more I see the actual demand is that like I was way too optimistic in terms of like how badly people need some solution for that, and like how badly protocols need solution for staking. So yeah, the more I will think about it, the more I realize like we are like shared security is way bigger than restaking. That was like the understanding that they got from actually talking to protocols.
How would you define those two terms, right? I think a lot of people use it interchangeably. How do you define that?
Yeah, like restaking is optimization and alignment tool. Like optimization is because you reuse the same token. You may like you get $1, and for $1 you get the value of 2. And alignment is that I use the same token or a sets of tokens to align myself in my ecosystem or within my like super DAO or within my like super chain or something. So restaking is used for alignment and optimization. Shared security is a set of like mechanism frameworks and a lot of other stuff, SDKs, like operator management systems and like methodologies, risk scoring methodologies that helps you get security quicker and optimized. Like, so the shared security is like a bigger subset to the smaller subset of restaking. Restaking is one initiative that like helps shared security to be achieved. Like shared security is a lot about UX, like actually like getting some like that's why like Cosmos SDK is so popular. Like a lot of chains, they're like actually like Cosmos chains. So Babylon is a Cosmos chain, right? Like they don't did like a lot of other like DIDX is a Cosmos chain, like Celeste is a Cosmos chain. Like this they are using it, the Cosmos SDK, and like a lot of them they don't like advertise that at all, but they're still like that because it's useful. Because Cosmos SDK is actually like a really great tool to start your chain. It has its flaws, but like it's actually like a better tool for that. So shared security is all about tooling, and the like a lot of it is about like the funnel for and like the pathing for decentralized networks to follow. Like currently, it's like loose set of like goals. I want like the operators that want like they know how to do DevOps, and they're like politically aligned, and they're kind of in a different place, not at one like VPS in one data room. So like it's kind of like all over the place. And then like I want to stake that semi-stable, but I don't have token. Like what do I do next? Like here the restaking comes in its for is like it's not like going to be restaking. Like it's not necessarily that you need restaking. You just need some tokens to secure your network, right? Might be your tokens, might be someone else's tokens, might be like the tokens that are used, but it's not a given. And then like a lot of protocols, they don't really care about restaking part. They just like, can we do this the launch? Can we do it actually decentralized but like faster? What tooling do you have to help support in that? The answer for that is like some tooling that we have. Like that's going to be the goal for 2025. That's really important to actually deliver on this promise. Because currently, you can actually launch like this was an important step because you couldn't do that before. Like if you have like a fully functional decentralized networks, most of those are like they require a lot more functionality that any protocol provided before. But like now it's the time of UX. So like the actual 2024 was about restaking mostly, and like 2025 I'm like pretty sure is going to be about shared security more than like restaking.
And, if you had to zoom out like 5 years from now, are you saying that you'd want to see Symbiotic Protocol in a place where it's just filled with tooling, right? And it sort of plays a Cosmos SDK role where, anyone that wants to launch a chain, a network of any sort, the first thought in their mind is like, hey, Symbiotic's the place to do it. And that's the best way for me to get this to the market in the quickest way with the best decentralization.
Not the best. There is like a best tool for everything. The word that I'm going for is default. Symbiotic is a default to launch a decentralized network. Yeah, that would be the goal. That's like what was the rationale for us designing protocol in this way. And like we are currently the only one who can actually do that, because for every other protocol, if they become big, they become a concern. For Symbiotic, it's not going to be that, because it's designed to be all encompassing and like safe while doing those.
Like, what do you mean by concern in that scenario?
Concern? Yeah, most of the protocols are controlled by DAO. If you have like 10, 15 networks that like decentralized networks on a bigger site, like 100 networks, 1,000 networks that are like controlled over the upgradable contracts, like governed by some token or another. Like even if this token is it's not great. This creates basically like, and currently like most of the protocols are managed by multi-sig. So it's like you convince 3 people to roll you and your consensus is gone. So Symbiotic was designed not to have this flaw. The more we grow, the safer we are. Not like from bugs, but like from at least like politics. because like the more you grow, the bigger the attention directed to you. But like in terms of bugs, like we have a lot of expertise in those. So I think we're like in a good place as well. In terms of like, do we want to be a Cosmos SDK or not? Like, no, the tooling is like loosely, it's one part of it. The other is like frameworks, supporting system, auxiliary systems that needs to be designed and developed and deployed by us, right? Like for us to be able to reach this promise of UX for decentralized networks. Those are going to be controlled by us, of course, like the ones that are not like mission critical or can be opt-in. So that's a lot of things that we need to develop and optimize, because currently, like the answer, like when decentralized networks launch, the short answer, you still have to develop a lot of things yourself. And this question should be like answered, no, you don't have to. And for that, we need flexible systems that like relayers, runners, keepers, like a lot of networks that are going to be supporting. And like it goes way beyond tooling. We have like several teams working on like operator management systems that are going to be like, you just like click somewhere, like upload your specification, and you get the best operator set for yourself. So the value creation goes way beyond tooling and just like pure like codes and like actually systems. It goes to like risk management. So that like we work with like a lot of risk agencies that basically like try to analyze like what is the problem with this token, like how like if it's not going to be like, if it can't be immediately slashed, or if it can't be like, if it has some centralized element into that, how does that translate to actual security? And a lot of these questions are not answered like yet. So the first ecosystem to actually like have like solution for all of this will be immediately more useful.
Amazing. And you touched on some of the strengths and maybe technical improvements that Symbiotic actually has over other players in the market. Do you want to touch on those specifically? Like, what would you say are some of the key benefits, or sort of how you guys are actually leading in that regard?
Well, yeah, we like the first one is the most obvious one. You can't actually launch a decentralized network like most of the types of networks. You can't launch anywhere else, because like we are the only ones who like can do punishment. Operators misbehave, like that's the whole point, right? Like, and you need some way to punish them. We are the only ones who has that, even like on an architectural level, because like most of like other protocols, they don't even like advertise how this can be done at all. The other one is flexibility. Like we are the most flexible. I think like Jito was inspired by us, and like their design is flexible, and they might be like closer to us than like a lot of others. But yeah, like the goal was not to be not like super opinionated, because the industry hasn't been created yet, right? Like the job for us was to be like all encompassing again, like to be the default. For that, we needed to be really flexible. You don't have to change your system to accommodate us. Reward mechanisms, like slashing mechanisms, they can be like customized, and they're like designed to be highly customizable. For other protocols, they have like a pathing for networks to follow, and this is like quite prohibitive in terms of like actually adding some functionality that is not like available. So yeah, I think like the walled garden approach is way worse than what we are trying to do. Modular and customizable usually wins the race, especially when you talk about like networks that are like actually really different to each other. Oracle networks requires different like rewards and like proving and everything to say like, I don't know, ZK coprocessor network, right? Like it's completely different infrastructure. It's completely different like modes of communicating and modes of like agreeing to some like subjective network, right? Like so one is provable, the other one is like completely subjective. And our protocol is basically designed to cater to everyone. That's another part that's like really subtle, but I think will be quite different between us and others. We are not opinionated. We are not like, we try to be neutral, right? Like a lot of other restaking protocols basically like started their life vampiring like LSTs, like a lot of other stuff. We decided like we want to do the stuff, like we want to do our part amazingly well. but we don't want to do like, we don't want to try to vampire other parts of it. So like LRTs are great. We're not going to create our own LRT. Like data availability layers are great. We're not going to create our own like data availability, because this would like scare people and like make us a player where we should be a platform. I mean, where we should be a platform. And like this is actually a huge problem in making. So we decided like that's what was one of the things why we chose this name, like Symbiotic, because we don't want to compete unnecessarily compete. We don't want to vampire people. We just want to like to deliver value in a way that people like consider safe. That was the rationale behind a lot of our decisions. How do you make it so like the concerns are like they're less than they were before, like that you can actually trust us with a lot of stuff, because we don't have an ability to like vampire you or do something else. Open system, permissionless, like just build on us, just like create a value for like thread the path for like others to follow. And yeah, like that was the whole rationale behind that. Otherwise, like, it's really hard to convince people to use that.
Yeah, it has to be open. And yeah, I really like that approach. And I think you guys do stand out in the market with that. So yeah, well done and well done for shipping that. I guess, we can sort of end off with this question. And I guess, I wanted to ask, like, what do you want to see the restaking market in general work towards in 2025, 2026? Potentially we're going into a bear market. I'm not sure what your views are on that, but hey, you never know. But let's say we do. Like, what do you want the restaking market as a whole to work on, right? Because like obviously there's been a huge amount of assets and TVL that's been sucked in on one side of this restaking marketplace. But for all of us, like we know that there needs to be a lot more adoption of these networks in the broader sort of crypto economy. And like you mentioned at the start, we don't have that many users, right? We don't have like the crypto economy. It looks big in terms of like numbers, right? But it's in terms of actual users, it's still very, very small compared to Web2. So what is going to move the needle in your eyes? And what do you think we collectively should be working towards?
Not compared to Web2, compared to retail stores. Like we are smaller than like the entirety of the industry is smaller than Walmart.
Literally.
Like we are not thinking about Web2 numbers yet. But yeah, like personally, like Ethereum over like 1.5K for me is not a bear market. So yeah, we're fine with that. But I think that restaking, like people don't actually look at this. Like a lot of people are looking at restaking and they're thinking like, oh yeah, it's like some whales that like want or like some big investors or like some investors that are passive that wants to like park their funds somewhere and like just get like marginally more return than just pure staking. That's not actually like that's not true. Restaking is an enormous in the making, again, like not now, but like within some time, it's an enormous mechanism of getting early into stuff. Like you can actually deliver value if you're like careful about selecting the networks with the biggest potential, and you get like incentives for securing network, not for like clicking on like hamster 5 times, but for actually providing some form of security to and like usefulness to a network that you help secure. And yeah, you get your first, like you get early and you get like some tokens that might be worth a lot if you're like good at selecting and like if everything goes to plan. So yeah, like the restaking, even in the bear market, like the instrument of getting early is really important, while actually like having incentive set to be useful while doing that. So yeah, like I think it's a good hedge, like, and like a lot of what we do is infrastructure. So those networks that are launching today are going to be great and huge in time. Like infrastructure takes time, the adoption takes time. Like it's not DeFi where like you create new farm and like the people are gravitating to that and like have you great, and then like within a few months you're like you don't have anything, or like you're, I don't know, like have the same but like new farm with new token. So the job here is to understand like it's infrastructure. Shared security is like an infrastructure. Like you get Rollups were like hyped for a really, really long time, right? And people are like, nobody is using those. Like everyone is still staying on L1. And then like Optimism came along, Arbitrum came along, Base came along, Unichain came along, and like we're nice. Like we have a lot of rollups that are like actually bigger than Ethereum in terms of like user base, not user base, but like user activity. So it takes time, and after a while, people are, yeah, like of course, Base is like has bigger like user activity because it's cheaper. You know, like I was telling you that it's going to be cheaper for like years before it actually launched. So infrastructure need to be like, you need to have patience, and like that's why bear market and market cycles in general, they're super important, but they're not as important for like straight DeFi, because for the teams it takes years to build an ecosystem that is robust enough. So like usually it's like evens itself out.
Yeah, totally agree. And final question from my side is, we can end it off here. What is one controversial prediction that you have for 2025?
Most restaking protocols are going to pivot, except us.
Cool. We'll take it. I will check in with you at the start of next year and we can review that. Awesome. All right, Misha, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, it's been great chatting to you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Restaked is brought to you by Swell Labs. To find out more about Swell, go to swellnetwork.io and make sure to search for Restaked wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Make sure to hit the follow button so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening.